Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich. I'm Lorna Virgili, his Hispanic Public Information Officer. And joining us today are Dr. James Bridgers, who is the Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, Mr. Sean O'Donnell, Assistant Chief of Public Health Services, Dr. Earl Stoddard, who is Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and our special guest this afternoon is Pia Morrison, who is the president of the SEIU Local 500. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Mr. County Executive, the floor is yours. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining again. Yesterday was Teacher Appreciation Day, and it was an opportunity to thank everyone who helps contribute to a child's education. When I became a teacher, I was somewhere around 40 years old. It started as a temporary job. When I realized the great need as children face the impacts of poverty, I became dedicated to it. I thought my role would be in high school, but I realized that educators can make the greatest difference, at least I thought so, in elementary school. Education sets the stage for everything else. If kids don't learn the fundamentals of reading, writing, and math by the time they leave fifth grade, they're likely not to get it later. I spent 17 years in the classroom. When I went back to visit Rolling Terrace a few years ago, I ran into a former student who's now a parent dropping off her own kids at the school that day. It shows that schools are a fundamental part of our community. They all deserve our attention and support. I'll get to more of that in my budget message this week, because even though we already made a record investment in education over the last few years, there's a lot more help that's needed. You have to appreciate how deep a hole the county has dug itself into on the school system over time. I want to thank MCPS for recognizing this as Teacher Appreciation Week, and it's a tough job that deserves community support. I wanted to have MCA President David Stein and SEIU President Pia Morrison to join me today to share with you what their issues and concerns were. But unfortunately, David's not able to join us. But I do want to thank him for what he said at the council yesterday during a proclamation ceremony recognizing Education Appreciation Week. And I'm just going to quote what he said. He said, "We appreciate the words. We appreciate the proclamation, because those 14,000 educators are in the classroom, in their work sites, are performing miracles every day. And they're meeting students with all sorts of challenges every day. They're nurturing them, they're loving them, they're inspiring them, even with the conditions we face, with underfunded schools, with buildings that are falling apart. They're doing the work in a national environment in which teachers are under attack and with unions under attack. The teachers' unions are really under attack. In that environment, our teachers are performing miracles. So we do appreciate the words you say, but I have to say that for most of my members, those words ring hollow. When you say these words at the same time you're making budget decisions that'll devastate our schools, they ring hollow." That's what David had to say to the council yesterday. I encourage you to watch his full remarks, because his points should be reported on. I want to double down on those comments here. If you're going to say you were with our students, with our teachers, and with investing in our future workforce, then invest in it. When we often focus so much on just teachers in our schools, we can't forget the thousands of other employees in MCPS who are not educators or who assist educators, but who work their jobs, and their importance to children, the teachers and principals and families they serve is equally important. MCPS staff is represented by our local SEIU 500. Pia Morrison serves as the president of the chapter. She also works as an IT systems specialist for MCPS. I asked her to be here today because it seems like everyone on the county council has forgotten what my proposed property tax was meant for. For years, school leaders hid their true needs, allowing the list of needs to grow long. I think it's time to start addressing those needs, but the county doesn't seem to want to. I wanted you to hear from Pia now. She knows firsthand the needs within our schools and why the council should support the full request from MCPS leaders. So welcome, Pia. Thank you for joining me.
And thank you so much for having me. I feel really honored to be in this space. I absolutely agree. And those words from David Stein are so profound. Just to give you all a snapshot of the 11,000 support staff professionals that work in MCPS, 70% of the support staff professionals that work in MCPS are indeed Montgomery County residents and tax-paying residents. Most of the support staff professionals are 10-month employees. They have almost 30 days of no work, no pay days, and most of them are working multiple jobs just to be able to put food on the table and to be able to meet their most basic needs for themselves and for their families. And the people that we're talking about specifically are our paraeducators who support children who are often struggling in the classroom and also provide one-on-one support to our children who have special needs. We're talking about security staff. We're talking about building service workers who are both sets of those workers are keeping schools safe and also keeping schools clean and creating a positive learning and work environment for our both staff and students. We're talking about skilled tradespeople that are sort of bandaging buildings together that are falling apart and doing the best that they can to keep the infrastructure of those buildings. And we're also talking about administrative support workers, family engagement specialists who are building the bridge between community and between MCPS, and many other workers who do a variety of different types of positions, as well as media assistants who are helping children enjoy the love of reading. So we're talking about a broad swath of workers who do a wide variety of work that provide the foundational support of everything that happens in Montgomery County Public Schools. So when we say that we care about students, then that also means an investment in the people who are supporting and caring for students. The school environment has changed so much since COVID, even though we feel as if COVID has sort of passed, even though we know people are still contracting COVID. What we're noticing is that children are still struggling with their mental health. Many of their parents are still struggling and haven't recovered from COVID and what that did to their jobs and job opportunities. We're seeing record job loss in this area because of what has happened with federal government workers. And all of that has an impact on the very staff, the support staff professionals that work in Montgomery County Public Schools. Along with students, these are the people that support students and create healthy learning and working environments. And they too deserve the support and the full funding that MCPS needs in order to get that very, very important work done. This is a very challenging time. Going back into the contracts will definitely be seen as a betrayal by the people who do this very important work, and particularly by a group of employees who most work about 20 hours per week. They have to work multiple jobs to live and thrive in this county. And they're doing the best that they can. And they've devoted their lives and their work primarily to making sure students have what they need so that they can be successful. So to me, the idea of not fully funding MCPS is a no starter because it's absolutely going to impact the support that students receive and the foundational work that happens for Montgomery County Public Schools.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Members of the media, I see Tom Fitzgerald has a hand up. Any questions for Ms. Morrison this afternoon regarding the school budget right now? Tom?
Thank you, but my question was for the county executive on the overall budget.
Okay, we can take those toward the end. Let's address the school budget first. Okay, I see Chili Jacoby from Bethesda Today. Go ahead.
Hi, this is a question for Ms. Morrison. During the council meeting yesterday, Dr. Taylor sort of talked about a hypothetical situation where they do have to make cuts to staff. And he said that it would be his recommendation that they try to cut staff that are as far away from the classroom as possible. So I'm just kind of curious what you make of that.
So when Dr. Taylor says that he wants to make cuts that are away from the classroom, again, he's going to reach into central office. And I want to tell you that right now, Montgomery County has the smallest central office staff of any school district, I think, of most of the larger school districts in the state of Maryland. So that's foundational work, and people who are often directly supporting and facing the community and offering them support. So all of the work that those folks do in central office is now just, if you continue to cut that staff, there aren't going to be that many people to do the work. And that means that there are other things that other people are going to have to take on. So now you're talking about one worker taking on, because that work doesn't magically go away, unfortunately. That work is just going to be piled onto the workers who are left.
Thank you. Members of the media, any additional questions for Ms. Robinson this afternoon? No more questions? Well, Ms. Morrison, thank you so much for joining us. You can remain on this call if you like to, but if you need to depart, please feel free to do so.
Again, thank you so much, County Executive Elrich, for allowing me to have this space. And thanks to all of you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining me. I mean, I think it's important that people hear directly from the people who have to deliver these services. When all these discussions are held, in a council chamber, where you don't really have to have or hear from people you don't want to hear from when you don't want to hear from. I think giving you a little broader audience is important. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your leadership and all of your fellow 25,000 educators in Montgomery County who reach and teach children every school day. I'd like to take a moment now to thank the County Council for their unanimous decision to fully fund the contracts that we negotiated with our employee groups. I'm pleased that all 11 members agreed that our dedicated county employees deserve the pay increase. That's in line with the growing cost of living in the region. And our county workforce does an outstanding job of running this 24-hour, 365-day-a-year operation. But I'm sort of with you, the pay is important, but so are the staff needed to get the work done in schools. And the other thing we're not even talking about is the failure of the council to even begin to address the capital budget needs of the schools. You came in with, not you personally, but the superintendent came in identifying more than $2 billion of long neglected school needs, and neglected because the council has not changed its bonding capacity in like 20 years. It's lower than it was when I was on the council. And you build this stuff with bonds. I mean, you don't have bonds, you don't build anything. And so having teachers operating in substandard conditions, knowing that buildings are going to have failing air conditioning systems, which will lead to closure, is not a way to approach this. And I'm really disappointed in the unwillingness to tackle this. As you know, the budget I submitted in March also contained the property tax increase solely dedicated to the school system. The funds would have raised to pay for services for this elected school board and the superintendent determined are necessary. I knew this was a lot to ask of our residents and taxpayers. My experience in this community over more than the past 70 years as a student, a parent, a grandparent, a retail clerk, a teacher, an elected official, a homeowner, and a taxpayer has shown me this community values education, and as is even willing to pay more when it comes to giving our children the very best opportunity at a great life. Earlier this week, the council decided to put aside my broad-based property tax increase, instead raising revenues by eliminating the county's largest property tax credit for homeowners, the poorly named income tax offset credit. But if you look at your tax bill, you see this thing ITOC on there. That's the ITOC. That's the income tax offset credit. The credit provides every homeowner in the county a $692 reduction in their property tax bill. This is more than my 6% tax increase would have been for anybody with a house less than $1,090,000. So this is a big elimination of a credit, which means everybody's homeowner's bill is going up $692. Council members are saying they've rejected my tax rate increase. They're still considering a tax bill increase that for many homeowners, especially seniors and residents on fixed incomes, will actually mean paying more while the county collects less revenue to support schools and services. And, there's a progressiveness about what I was going to do, because it's not a flat rate that hits everybody. It goes up, obviously, the more your house is worth. The council's approach is that everybody gets a $692 tax increase, which may not mean much to somebody making $2 or $3 million, but means a whole lot to somebody, in a house making $100,000. So it's not the fairest and most equitable way to do this, and I'm concerned that this is the path they chose to go down. I think residents deserve an honest conversation about this. The credit helps approximately 201,000 owner-occupied households in Montgomery County. And again, when you eliminate the ITOC, the homeowners lose that benefit immediately. This next tax bill, that ITOC tax credit will not be on your next tax bill. Now compare that to my recommended approach to the taxes. I proposed 6.3% property tax increase dedicated to the MCPS while preserving the ITOC. As I pointed out last week, for a homeowner whose property was valued below $100.09 million, the cost of eliminating the ITOC is greater than the cost of my property tax increase. So the council is trying to characterize this as avoiding a property tax increase. But for most homeowners, it's an even bigger property tax increase. And the burden does not fall evenly. Under the council plan, commercial properties are untouched. Their taxes do not increase while you, the homeowners, absorb the loss of the credit. I want to put this in perspective for all of you, particularly homeowners, so you understand what a con job is being run. They talk about giving you a tax break. Well, the other people who get tax breaks and all this is commercial property. And what happens when we compare Montgomery County's commercial property tax to everyone in the region, there is no jurisdiction in the region, none, zero, which has a lower tax on commercial property than Montgomery County. And to be sitting in a time of need where the only place the council is willing to go for revenues to go after residents is really unfortunate. If you're in the District of Columbia, commercial property gets taxed between $1.66 and $1.89. If you were in Frederick County, commercial property is taxed at $1.11. If you're in Howard County, commercial property is taxed at $1.34. If you're in Prince George's County, commercial property is taxed at $1.37. If you're in Fairfax County, commercial property starts at $1.27 and goes up to about $1.50. Montgomery County is $1.03. This council refuses to do anything to make the tax on commercial property fairer and more similar to what's around us, and instead focuses on the residents. And, my tax, I would not have had to do what I did this year if the council had supported legislation in Annapolis that would have allowed Montgomery County to adopt differential tax rates. The council refused to support the legislation. Without their support, our legislative body or our senators said that, without a position from the council, they weren't comfortable supporting it. So this is extremely inequitable way of dealing with this. The council reduces the income taxes for all taxpayers earning under $900,000. It sounds attractive politically, but there's a major question nobody wants to answer publicly. Who actually benefits enough from the income tax reductions to offset the ITOC? Imagine a retiree living in Leisure World with an annual income of $50,000 and a condominium assessed at about $400,000. My proposal would have raised their taxes $252. Under the county council's proposal, that resident sees a $692 increase, but they'll get a $350 income tax reduction. There's still a $342 tax increase. Once again, the result is that this retiree ends up paying more overall under the council's proposal than under my recommended budget. That's the definition of a lose-lose situation. The homeowner pays more, the county collects less revenue overall, and we create a larger structural budget problem moving forward. Passage of this income tax proposal will leave my successor with an enormous problem, and our taxpayers with whiplash as next council will need to undo all of this. If they don't undo all of this, we're going to be looking at major reductions in services in the county. Just like the council rejected the council president's initial call to reduce employee compensation, the council needs to reject this ill-conceived income tax plan that has never once received a public hearing. Nobody in this county knows what's going on. And this is doubly ironic because We proposed changes to the tax structure, and the council president said, we can't talk about that now in the middle of doing the taxes. We're not making any changes. That'll have to be talked about after this is over. Then they spin around and they go through a major overhaul of the tax structure with no public hearing and no real assessment of what this means. The public is not involved. I respect and appreciate the desire of many in the council to provide relief to family struggling the most in our community. That's why I actually included an increase in our working families income supplement in my budget. This was targeted. The benefit only went to those families with incomes below $50,000. What the council's doing is, because of the way the tax is structured, it lowers the first $50,000 of the tax on the first $50,000 of everybody's income, costing far more than it needed to cost to provide a benefit to the people who said we were trying to provide a benefit to. It puts meaningful dollars in their pockets when you do the working families income supplement, and it means that these dollars are in their pocket to pay for food and housing. It's much more targeted than an income tax rate cut. And I would urge those on the council who share my desire to help the most vulnerable in our county return to this proposal. I asked CAO Rich Madalino to join me here in case he wants to add anything. So Rich, anything you want to add now?
You're on a roll. I don't want to stop it, but I'm happy to answer any of the questions that come up from reporters about these various tax structures and what they do to the county revenue.
Okay. I'll go to the next thing. We've been working closely with the Moore administration. Tomorrow I'm going to be joining Governor Moore, transportation officials, and members of our state delegation in Silver Spring as part of the governor's Delivering for Maryland tour, marking the installation of the final section of Purple Line track and the beginning of the project's testing phase. This has been a very long road, and thanks to Governor Hogan, an extraordinarily expensive road, an unnecessarily expensive road. The idea for the Purple Line dates back decades, and the project has faced delays, funding challenges, the pandemic, the loss of an original contractor. That was one of the worst things in what the previous governor did, because normally when you have a contract this big and this crucial, you have binding arbitration when you have a dispute between a contractor and between, say, the payer, which in this case would have been the state government. He didn't have binding arbitration. So when they couldn't reach an agreement, the contractor just walked. And the contractor walking made this project much more expensive than it needed to be. So reaching this milestone now is significant for Montgomery County, Prince George's, and the state of Maryland. Purple Line will eventually provide another transportation option connecting residents to Metro, Mark, and Ride-On and other transit systems while helping improve mobility throughout this corridor. Transportation infrastructure matters because it impacts everything from economic development to housing access to jobs and schools. Tomorrow's event is an opportunity to highlight several ways the state and Montgomery County continue to work together during a difficult economic period, and that includes support for displaced federal workers, investments in transportation and affordable housing, and continued efforts to grow our life sciences and technology sectors. And I appreciate the partnership Governor Moore and his administration have shown on these many issues, and I look forward to participating in tomorrow's event. And speaking of things we do in partnership, earlier this week, I joined Governor Moore, the Maryland Department of Commerce, the economic development leaders across the state at the Select USA Investment Summit at National Harbor. The conference brings together international companies, investors from around the world who are looking to expand and create jobs in the United States, and it provides Maryland with an opportunity to compete and showcase itself. Montgomery continues to be one of the leading destinations in the country for international businesses, especially in industries like life sciences, biotech, quantum computing, cybersecurity, and advanced technologies. We have one of the most highly educated workforces in the nation, and proximity to federal agencies and research institutions, and a diverse international community that makes companies from around the world feel welcome here. The work does not happen alone. Our partnership with the Moore-Miller administration and the Maryland Department of Commerce has been extremely important in helping attract international investment and strengthen Maryland's position globally. Whether it's working together on trade missions, supporting companies looking to expand here, or coordinating efforts around the workforce development and infrastructure, state's been a strong partner in helping us compete economically. At a time when we're facing uncertainty from federal layoffs and economic instability, continuing to attract international business and investment is more important than ever. These companies create jobs, strengthen our tax base, support small businesses, and help ensure that Montgomery County and Maryland remain economically competitive in the future. And I would juxtapose, what's happening in the national economy now with job shrinkages, companies working with fewer employees, taking less office space, shrinking office footprints. This is, a national phenomenon, and it's certainly a big issue here in the DMV area. And so we have the ability to attract companies from outside the United States who are actually in expansion modes. And so I think our work at trying to bring companies here from outside is very important as we face contraction of similar segments in domestic industries at this moment. So there's a lot of effort being put into international work by all of us, and I think it's important work to do. On another really nice note, last week we celebrated the opening of a microgrid at our Equipment Maintenance Transportation Operations Center, known within our offices as MTOC. And this is one of two principal locations where the transit fleet is maintained and from which it operates. Our transit fleet has traditionally been the county's largest fuel consumer, with this facility alone consuming 1.76 million gallons of fuel every year. And our buses produce over 4,000 metric tons of carbon emissions every year. But times are changing. In response to our aggressive climate goals, our Department of General Services has employed innovative strategies such as microgrids and energy resilient facilities across the county. The MTOC microgrid is the most recent outstanding example of this commitment. It is now the largest renewable energy powered bus depot in the United States. By 2035, the site will support 200 zero emission buses, including hydrogen fuel cell buses that match the extended range we need for our longest routes, which were previously only met by carbon emitting buses. Combined with our Brookville facility, we'll have infrastructure to power 335 zero emission buses, helping us build one of the largest green fleets in the region. This microgrid generates 4.8 megawatts of solar power and 6.9 megawatts of megawatt hours of battery storage. It's also designed to operate in island mode, which means that even if the main power grid goes down, our transit system continues to run. In phase 2 of this project, we will host the first on-site green hydrogen production facility on the East Coast, using a 2 megawatt electrolyzer to produce hydrogen for our hydrogen electric buses, some of which will be delivered later this year. This impact is massive. The project alone reduces more than 4,000 metric tons of CO2 annually. That's the equivalent to taking 780 homes off the grid. These investments support the expansion of our bus rapid transit network and create high-tech career opportunities for underserved communities. This achievement was made possible because of our powerful partnerships with Alphastructure and Pepco, as well as nearly $15 million in federal funding from the Federal Transit Administration and $1.6 million from the Maryland Energy Administration. I've got to thank Lieutenant Governor Runa Miller personally for her visit at the ceremony. It was great seeing her there and recognizing that this is something worth celebrating for the state. The county's also added microgrids in key locations like the 6th District Police Station, the Emergency Communications Center, our public safety headquarters, and the animal shelter, because these are areas that should never be without power, even in an emergency. And in other good news, I want to mention that I was in Wheaton for the opening, or I should say the beginning of the project for Silver Branch Brewery and Mosaic Cuisine, who are planning to open a new location in the community. And I think it's another positive sign of continuing momentum and investment that we're seeing in Wheaton. Wheaton has one of our most diverse and vibrant small business communities anywhere in the region. It has incredible food, arts, culture, and entrepreneurs who've continued investing in this community through some pretty difficult years, including the pandemic and the economic uncertainty we're dealing with now, as well as the uncertainty being introduced into the business and job market by ICE. Projects and businesses like this matter because they help activate our downtowns, create jobs, bring more foot traffic to surrounding businesses, and give residents more places to gather and spend time locally. And in this case, we're talking about a locally owned business that already has a successful presence in Montgomery County, that is choosing to further invest in Wheaton's future. County's made major investments in Wheaton over the last several years, from redevelopment of the town center and public spaces to transportation, housing, and economic development efforts. We are continuing to see benefits of those investments as more buses, or more businesses, recognize the opportunity and energy that exists in this community. So I want to thank the owners of Silver Branch and our DGS staff for making this deal happen. We're excited to welcome them to the community, and I look forward to seeing positive impact they're going to have on this area. And before I turn it to questions, I want to close by just saying I don't want to forget that this week is National Nurses Week. We're seeing a growing population of nurses over the age of 55. At the same time, the data shows a 4% decrease in the number of associate degrees earned in nursing across Maryland between 2018 and 2022. Nurses are a vital cog in our healthcare system, and we need to encourage more people to join the ranks. I'm thankful that the Universities of Shady Grove and Montgomery College offer training programs and that graduates contribute to the local healthcare workforce. So before we open it up to questions, I'll give my staff an opportunity to provide any updates they might have, and I'll start with the health team.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, for recognizing National Nurses Week. Today is National Nurses Day. And just to add some additional data to that, we have over 218 nurses deployed in over 211 schools in our Montgomery County Public School System, 168 school health nurses, 231 school health room techs, 30 substitute nurses who stand in the gap when those nurses are unavailable or they're out of the office. And then we also have, as a tertiary line of backup, 20 contract nurses. So on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services, for all the nurses who may be watching this afternoon, we thank you. We thank you, Mr. County Executive, for your acknowledgement and your support of our public health services and our school health nursing program. So having said that, I'll stop there and I'll turn it over to Mr. O'Donnell for any additional public health service updates.
Thank you, Dr. Bridgers. I just want to mention that this is the time of year when there is a lot of respiratory ailments. Most of those are currently being attributed to allergies or the common cold. A lot of common cold going around. Same recommendations to try to prevent the spread of it. It doesn't have a significant impact for most people as the flu does or as COVID does, but it's still causing a lot of people to have those symptoms. I just want to add on to what our director said and share my appreciation for our nurses across all of our programs, all of our nurses in school health, as was mentioned, all of our nurses in maternal and child health and communicable disease, in our immunizations team. They're all do tremendous work. We appreciate everything they do, and our nurses who serve on the mobile health clinic and with community and population health. And nurses serve throughout HHS at every position you can imagine, from our chief operating officer on down to the frontline staff who see our clients every day. So we are truly blessed to have so many committed, dedicated professionals on our team. And again, we'd like to honor them every week, but this is the week that we get to make those public shout outs. So I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Stoddard to add any additional comments.
I just wanted to echo some of the county executive's comments with regard to Fallen Heroes Week. Obviously, we had a vigil last night that myself and Mr. Madalino attended, and today there was a formal ceremony that the county executive attended and spoke at, where we recognized the officers who've lost their life serving in Montgomery County. And I just want to take a moment to appreciate the sacrifices that our law enforcement officers make each and every day. Our public service and public safety responders across the board. We want to, obviously, we're there to support them and the families who have lost so much and given so much to Montgomery County. So I just wanted to echo those comments.
Thank you, gentlemen, members of the media. We're going to open it up for general questions right now. Tom Fitzgerald, Fox 5 DC. Go ahead, Tom.
County Executive, thank you as always for doing these briefings. You kind of laid out, where you're at with the council right now. Con job is pretty strong language. I want to ask you where you are in your discussions with them right now, and are there discussions? Because you have less than 2 months before all of you need to figure this out.
Well, they got less than 2 weeks to figure it out. So this is coming to a rapid closure. I mean, there aren't really any discussions to have. I mean, they'll either provide enough money or they're going to have to make decisions on what they're going to cut out of the budget. We've tried to give some guidances like places you absolutely should not go, but we already did a bunch of that. I think I've said this before. Before I submitted this budget, we went through and I asked my staff to give me anything that didn't have a human impact that we could cut. And we made cuts before we even sent them over to the council, things I would have wished we could keep doing, but we made decisions we're just not going to do it for right now because there's not the money. But, they're now in the territory. And I've said this before, my fear is that we're doing exactly like this is Donald Trump's dream. He cuts the federal government, says we're no longer in the business of doing X, Y, and Z. And he has said bluntly, we're sending this to state and local government. That's his words. It's not my words. So that's him saying this is now going to be state and local responsibilities. So at the very moment that we're becoming increasingly responsible for dealing with problems that we used to have a federal partner in, now we're going to be doing this by ourselves. This is not a good moment to decide you're now going to also simultaneously decrease funding because you're worried about taxes. And if Montgomery County was the highest tax jurisdiction or close to that in this area, I'd say, fine, you got an argument there. People don't want to be the highest tax jurisdiction. But if I'm a Montgomery County resident, I might be asking myself, how is it that in DC property taxes are 85 cents on residents and $1.03 in Montgomery County? And how do they do that? And my answer would be because their commercial property taxes start at $1.66 and go to $1.89. Ours start at $1.03 and stop at $1.03.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, we had a way to adopt a different tax system if we had supported legislation and that was in the legislature. The council would not take a position even to support a bill that would have given them the ability to create a tax structure. It didn't even dictate a tax structure. It said you could do this.
Can I ask you two quick ones?
Yeah.
You've got experience as a member of that council and you've got experience as the county executive. What is the politics of this right now when you've got 3 members of that council who are running for county executive right now?
It makes it a terrible time to discuss any kind of tax increase because this becomes like a political football and it'll be, there's not going to be much discussion, particularly from a couple of the candidates, about all the tax cuts they've given to developers that help create the hole we're in, or the fact they're not willing to raise tax on them. And it makes it very hard to discuss. And so if you say you're not going to talk about a tax increase, then you do things like they may vote to get rid of the ITOC. You know what the ITOC is? It's a income tax credit. It's 692 that every homeowner gets
on their property tax bill.
Off your property tax bill,
which you've discussed.
Yeah. So they're going to get a 690. They're going to take away the $692 credit, which is an instant tax increase. Last time I checked, and they're saying they're not raising taxes. It's just like, just say what you're doing, own it.
And quick one, Reardon Sullivan, who, as you know, is running again for county executive, is out.
No, he's running for council.
Yeah, is out saying that all of this can be avoided through cuts alone. Is that true?
Sure, you could shrink the social programs. We could shrink the schools. We could increase class size. We could not fund any of the climate stuff. I mean, he's a Republican, so I'm sure he thinks climate change is a mirage. We could satisfy them there. I could put more homeless people on the street. If the feds cut 7.5 million for one of our programs, that's 500 people on the street. Yeah, if you're fine with all that, yeah, you can cut a lot of things. I'm not fine with being in an uncivilized place. If I wanted to do that, I'd move someplace else.
Thank you, County Executive.
Thank you, Tom. Members of the media, any additional questions this afternoon? Okay, Sheely, go ahead. That's today.
Hi, this is a completely different subject, but yesterday, Councilmember Evan Glass introduced a bill about putting a 6-month moratorium on data centers. I know, Mr. County Executive, you've previously sort of supported that idea, but said that you wouldn't do it yourself, that you would want the council to be the ones to do that. So just curious if you have thoughts on his proposal and whether you're supportive of it.
I'm thinking of some other options. I mean, we're having conversations about the data center. I've got a better idea of who the data center operator is going to be. We're trying to understand what what we can do and what they're willing to do. I would like to get us in a position where we can avert anything, but I also don't want to wait for legislation to pass. And, his bill could not get considered, for a while now. And I may yet put a moratorium on, but, my thinking is if I do it, and I've talked to at least a couple of the other council members, I would do it to a date certain, long enough to give the council the time to actually create legislation. I don't think there needs to be a 6-month study. These things have been studied so many times. You could fill your library with studies, and I think we've seen what's happened around us. I think the council has enough information to act without waiting 6 months, and I would just as soon be in a position to not drag it out longer than we need to drag it out. Whichever way we go, we should know what we're going to do sooner than later.
Thank you. Any additional questions for the county officials this afternoon? Okay, Mr. County Executive, I think we're done for today. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And have a great afternoon, everyone. So we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.